ready to connect with distinguished Nigerians around the world? The Diaspora Perspective is here to share the views of Nigerians in the diaspora on burning issues.
From the street of New York, the royal cities of London, and the bustling cities of Europe, Voice of the People Television brings to you a roundtable and collage of interesting views from Nigerians in diaspora.
Join the host of the show and some Nigerians in diaspora, Dr. Damages, the flagship, Show, and KJ, as they discuss the experiences, challenges, and triumphs of Nigerians living abroad.
Discussing and analyzing everything from politics, culture, policies, career success, and how Nigerians are staying connected to their roots. Showing every Saturday by 2 p.m. West African Time and 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
The Diaspora Perspective, giving a voice to Nigerians abroad.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to another interesting edition of the Diaspora Perspective Show on Voice of the People Television. I am your host, Chukwuma Okoro. And as usual, on the Diaspora Perspective Show, we discuss different critical political governance and economic issues about Nigeria. And they said that there's love in sharing. So we share with our brothers in the diaspora, in the United States, Canada, United Kingdom, and all over the world, just to ensure that we are on the same page when it comes to development, because we want to build a greater Nigeria. But before we get into the show, I will encourage you to like our page by subscribing. On YouTube, we are at Voice of the People TV and on other social media platforms at VOTV Live. On today's show, we'll be discussing different issues, that have trended, things that Nigerians are talking about. And one of them is the Yoruba Nation agitator, Sunday Igbo, who submitted a petition to the UK Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, demanding for support for the realization of the Yoruba Nation. Sunday Igbo wants to create a Yoruba Nation. Well, he was representing Professor Akintoye, who says, look, it is time for the Yoruba people to exit Nigeria. Besides that, World Bank has applauded the economic reform policies of President Bola Tinubu and advised Nigeria to sustain those reforms for the next 15 years to make it impactful and beneficial to the Nigerian population. Meanwhile, the same World Bank has also said that Nigeria and other sub-Saharan African countries will need 100 years to exit extreme poverty. Wow, such a contradiction. Well, in the course of the week, both President Bola Tinubu and his vice, Kashim Shettima, traveled outside Nigeria. Did they create a leadership vacuum? Well, we'll find out in the course of the show. And again, within the week, the quest for an Ogoja state passed through second reading in the House of Representatives. This is not the first nor the second time since this administration that people have agitated for the creation of another state. First, it was Ned Nwoko that said, look, we need an Anioma state to make the Southeast have 6 states for equity, because every other region, every other zone in this country, except the Southeast, has 6 states, with even the Northwest having 7 states. After that, we had Amo Bioga say, oh, we also need an equity or Etiti state to be carved out from the 5 Southeast states, also to create an equity, with other zones. And finally, we had Ofiono say, look, we need an Ogoja state. Ogoja was a province in the First Republic and has remained the only province that is not a state now, but embedded in another state. Oh, well, these are the topics that we'll find out how things are happening in Nigeria today. We'll unpack a lot and also unpack a lot. So, but before we get into the major topics of discussion, let me introduce my guests. I have in the studio Mr. Peter Anosike, an economist, an author, and a public speaker. Mr. Anosike, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
On the other side, we have Dr. Damages. Dr. Damages, are you there?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Okay, Dr. Damages, welcome to the show. We also have Sho. Sho, are you there?
Yes, good afternoon, Mr.
Okay,
Okoro.
good afternoon, Sho. Sho is joining from the UK. The flagship,
Yes,
are you there?
Yes, I am. Good morning, Chukuma. Thanks
Okay,
for
the
having me.
flagship, thanks for joining the show. Flagship is joining from Atlanta in Georgia. We also have KJ, who is joining us from Maryland. KJ, can you say hi to our listener at home? Okay, KJ will join us in the course of the show. Now, before we kick into the major show, before we cruise into the show, a couple of things happened in Nigeria during the week, and I thought to say, how can we share ideas? How can we banter a little bit on these issues? Governor Ayedetuwa of Ondo State within the week awarded a contract of 775 million naira for the construction of Government House Gate for Ondo State. We also had the governor of Akwa Ibom State, Umar Eno, budget 14.7 billion naira for renovations, repairs in the state. And out of those 14.7 billion naira, 9 billion, I repeat, 9 billion naira was set aside for renovation of the governor and the deputy governor's lodges. And away from that, within the week, the national grid collapsed for 3 times, making it the 8th or 9th time this year, and the 229 times in the past 14 years. Is it possible that we can build an industrialized country, that we can boost our economy, that our economy can grow with this kind of epileptic power supply? Gentlemen, I would like us to chime in a little bit on any of these issues before we cruise into the major show. Mr. Anosike, you heard the banter. What's your take on any of them?
My take is on the governor of Akwa Ibom, Eno, spending, that's budgeting over 9 billion naira for the renovation of the governor's house. That's what is known as priority projects.
Is that a problem?
It's a problem because that's not what Nigeria needs at this point in time. Nigerians are going through difficult time. What we should be thinking now is let us maintain what we have and not building new ones.
No, but it's just for renovation. Renovation of the governor.
He has where he is sleeping. Okay. It's not a priority project.
But Akwa Ibom happens to be a very wealthy state. If you check their federation allocation account, sometimes they net like 29 billion naira. So just taking out 9 billion naira in 1 year to renovate the government house, is there any problem with that?
What is the welfare of the people of Akwa Ibom? What is the standard of living? What is the quality of life of Akwa Ibom people? Does it reflect what that amount of money? So we should be focusing on priority projects. Understand me? So that's my take. For me, it is money that will be wrongly spent.
All right, gentlemen on the other side, Flagship, let me have your take on any of those 3 issues that I just raised now.
Well, as always, Nigeria is always heading in the opposite direction of where normal trajectory is. For a governor to earmark such an amount of money to renovate a house that he's living in is misplaced priority. The people, as always, do not count in every one of these Nigerian politicians when they make their decisions. Who spends 9 billion to renovate a house you already live in? What are you renovating? What is there that are you building a new one? That amount of money, you and I know that it's not going into renovation. It's just going into somebody's pocket. And the reason why these things happen is because there is no accountability by anyone, from anyone, not even the people who are supposed to be holding their politicians accountable for every kobo spent in developing their nation. So I think this is just misplaced priority. It's just a way, in my opinion, an SPV just siphoning funds out of the state.
Flagship, do you want to tell me that the governor of Georgia doesn't renovate his residence?
It's not, you cannot put such an amount of money. As a matter of fact, there's no way. It can never be approved. The governor is going to go down for it if you have to. The governor's mansion here in the state of Georgia is the property of the state, and he cannot just earmark any amount of money without itemizing one by one what that money is going to be used for, and it has to be approved.
Flagship, that money was approved by the House of Assembly that did the budget, and he merely assented to it.
So the point is this: what are you renovating? These are the questions we, the people, ask. So if the governor of my state, Georgia, comes up today or tomorrow and say the governor's mansion needs to be renovated, the question is, what are you renovating? What is there that needs to go out? Can it be replaced at a minimal cost? And if there's nothing that the state earmarks for in the time of the governor being in office, that money has to come out of his own pocket. The state does not throw out money like that, no. Yes, before the state can approve such a humongous amount of money, it goes through a rigorous process. And the people, of course, are involved in the conversation.
All right. Doctor, thanks very much, Flagship. Dr. Damages, can we have your take on any of those three topics that we just raised now?
Oh, thank you so much, Chukuma. I think Flagship, it's been a long time he was in Nigeria. He's a poor African in America. Nigerian leaders, they live a good life. They are used to Italian furniture. They are used to marble floor imported from abroad. They're not used to this kind of life. So you should understand why it might be expensive for them to renovate a house or even the gates. Here, the gate to the White House is nothing fancy. But you have to build a gate in Nigeria that once you appear there, you know that there is a big man who lives there. So those are necessary things. As long as the people are not unhappy over this, they will continue. And I think finally, eventually, to get to a point where these people you are looking at will make the people to get mad.
Dr. Damages, don't you think that the governor needs to be secured, given the state of insecurity that pervades the country, Nigeria?
Yes, with a gate that you use 770 something million naira to build. Yeah, I think so. They need security. They need maybe a military base inside the governor's mansion.
All right. Sure. Sorry, can we have your take on that?
Yes, thank you once again. It's quite unfortunate that, the Nigerian elite class, have just not, they're tone deaf to the people. They're very tone deaf. You see this sort of audits, and it's been approved by their colleagues who are aspiring to take over from the governor. And one of the reasons why these guys in the State House of Assemblies would always, pass these bills is because they want to be nice to the governor, so that when the governor is leaving after 2 terms, 8 years, they would anoint one of them. That's why they would always pass all these criminal bills that they pass. In the UK, the Prime Minister gets about £30,000 a year for the maintenance of 10 Downing Street. That's what they get for the maintenance. A few years ago, Boris Johnson spent about £118,000, I think around 2020 or 2021, to renovate 10 Downing Street, and that became an issue. He had to explain where he got the rest of the money from, because we only allocate 30,000. So who are the people giving you this gift? Are these people you are going to pay back in some sort of way? That's lobbying. They wanted to find out who gave you the rest of the money. If your budget is 30,000 and you spend 120,000 pounds, let me tell you, based on calculations today, in the UK, sending a pound to Nigeria is about 2,200 naira. The gate that the Ondo State governor has renovated or constructed at 775 million naira, that is 352,000 pounds today. Downing Street, 10 Downing Street gets 30,000 for the maintenance of the whole thing a year. And a governor in Nigeria, one of these states, is spending more than 10 times on gate alone. You see, Peter Obi was impeached in Anambra State because one of the reasons he said he was impeached, because when he came in as a governor, they had already passed a budget to renovate a burnt government house or state house for 298 million naira. Peter Obi came in and tore that apart, and he spent 43 million naira on the same project. There was another part of the building that was destroyed, and they had already passed a budget for 486 million naira. Peter Obi spent 81 million naira renovating the same. So these guys they are crooks, most of them. They are fleecing Nigerians. They are robbing the Nigerians people blind. And until our people get fed up and stand up and blot out the ethnic lines and the religious lines that the politicians continue to draw, and let us focus on the divide and conquer that they play, until Nigerian people clear out those lines that it's not about ethnicity. So let me tell you what will happen. These things are coming to light, that even state House of Assemblies are as bad as the National Assembly. The minute people start paying attention to this state of House of Assembly, the governors will start saying, oh, they're after me because I'm from Cross River South. The people sponsoring this campaign against me are from Cross River East. That's why they don't want me to be there. They want to get rid of your son. And they trust Nigerians to buy that sort of nonsense, and it will become ethnic, tribal, even within the states. That's what's going to happen. But I'm looking forward to the day when Nigerians will have enough and say, you know what, we can't have this anymore.
Thank you so very much, gentlemen, for your quick takes on those three topical issues. Now, let's cruise into the main show. In the course of the week, Yoruba Nation agitator Sunday Igbo submitted a petition to UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, asking him to support the realization of the Yoruba Nation's sovereignty in Nigeria. This is not the first time. Some time ago, Nnamdi Kanu, leader of IPOB, also submitted a similar petition to the United Nations, asking the UN to support the exit of the Igbo nation from Nigeria. My question is, or my concern in all of this is this. Despite the huge diversity, despite the huge asset that our diversity offers us, why is it that certain ethnic groups want to exit this nation? Why? Because a state like, a country like United States of America prides itself on its diversity. Even the United Kingdom, you have the Englishman, the Scot, and the Welsh living together peacefully. They have been able to moderate and modulate their differences to the point of being a nation. Why is it difficult to have that in Nigeria? Why is it difficult for us to have that in Nigeria? Mr. Anosike, let me come to you. What do you think is responsible for this agitation for people to exit, want to leave Nigeria? Nigeria is no longer comfortable. Why do we have to break the union?
Well, for me and for most of Nigerians, this agitation is coming as a result of frustration. Frustration is the root of all these things. Everybody likes to be a Nigerian if things is going well. But right now, things are not going well in the country.
In what sense?
One, we are not practicing simple live and let live. Nigeria is not practicing live and let live. It's not an egalitarian society. There's discrimination in the country. Understand? Some people are being seen as second-class citizens, and so on and so forth. So the root of all these things is frustration. Assuming that things are going well, there's no way anybody will want to exit this country. Apart from Congo, I don't see any country in the world that God so much endowed with mineral resources. But over last time, World Bank said that 129 million Nigerians are living in multidimensional poverty. But that's an understatement. More than 200 million Nigerians are living in multidimensional poverty.
Peter, the last time I checked, I think that was yesterday, the United Nations says that Nigeria's population is 232 million people. So how come you say that over 200 are multidimensionally poor?
So, in your mind, do you feel that we have 20 million people that are living comfortably?
I think there are more than that.
20 million
yes.
that are living comfortably?
Yes.
In which part of the country?
In Nigeria here, in the city centers, the middle class, don't we have a middle class? Anyway?
More than 200 million Nigerians are living in multidimensional poverty.
Is that the reason why people want to exit this union?
That's why I say it is frustration. It is frustration.
Why is it that we find this frustration only in the South? Have you ever heard that the North wants to exit Nigeria? Why is the frustration only in the South?
If you go back in time, the North was the first to begin to find this ember of exiting Nigeria.
That was over 60 years ago.
Remember, after the coup of 1966, what they were shouting is Araba, Araba. Understand me? So it is them that started this because they felt that Nigeria will be, the remaining part of Nigeria will be too hot for them. Because then the South dominated the economy and the political space that before 1966 coup. Understand me? So if things are going well, everybody will want to remain in this country. But the system here, now we are practicing totalitarianism in the form of democracy. Understand me? So the bane of these things is frustration. Things are not going well in this country. Understand? And if you check, there's no ethnic group in Nigeria that has shown the willingness to be one Nigeria than the Southeast. Because they go everywhere in the country and they bring development. You can hardly see a Yoruba man going to Onitsha to build a mansion. But the best buildings in Lagos are owned by Southeasterners. Go to Kanu, go to Kaduna. So we have demonstrated that unity, that oneness. But we are getting something on the contrary. So, and that's frustration. And that's why these people are calling for self-determination.
Good. Now let's move over to the panelists on the other side. Dr. Damages, let me come to you on this. Mr. Anosike just said something, that the Southeasterner has demonstrated more faith in the unity of this country than any other group. But on the contrary, they are the ones that are very intense in their agitation to leave. What do you think is responsible for that?
We have to be careful how we say the Southeasterners or even the Yoruba people want to leave, because we haven't done any polling to know the percentage of people who are agitating to leave at any point from any of the groups. I'll give you an example. In America here, there are over 12 groups actively fighting to break away from the United States. The state of Texas, California, New England, so many groups. The southern states in America, they still want to leave the United States. But it doesn't mean that a large percentage of people are buying that argument. But there are people who are pushing for it, and they're active. So it's very important to note that the Yoruba nation agitators went to England to do that. I actually applaud them for doing that, especially when Tinubu is the president, because it would have been hypocritical if they folded their campaign because Tinubu is now president. So that's a positive thing. But the reason why people do this is simply that it's not working for them. The day United States stop working for majority of people in Texas or in California, they want to break away. California is, as a state, if it becomes a country, will be the 5th largest economy in the world. So they have every reason to break away from America. But they are still in America because America is still serving them. The day they feel that it's no longer serving them, they will keep more people will join that agitation. So I don't know exactly how many people in the Southeast or from the Southeast will say we want Biafra, we want to leave. I don't know how many Yoruba people will say we want to leave and form a Yoruba nation.
Dr. Damages, the Yoruba nation movement is led by a professor, Professor Akintoye. This is one who has peaked in his career. So if he is driving this agenda, will it be right to say that, look, that it's at the pedestrian level that these demands are being heard? Given the fact that it's driven by somebody who belongs to the intelligentsia, somebody who is an elite by any reckoning, by any standard.
Oh, yeah, there's no demarcation in terms of the desire of people. It's not about the level of education. There are educated Igbo people who are supporting the Biafran movement. And for many reasons, some people want cultural identity to be preserved. Some people feel that the country Nigeria is modeling up their cultural identity. Some people feel that it's holding them back. It's not something that is, there is a line of demarcation based on education. No. People have genuine reason to believe that this is not working for us. We are not going to spend another 100 years trying to make Nigeria work. The best thing is to go out separately. There are people who legitimately believe that. So I don't think it has anything to do with the level of education.
No, why I brought this level of education is the fact that you said that we should be careful how we promote the discussion about people wanting to leave, the people of the Southeast or the people of the Southwest. In the past week, we have not seen any person from the Southeast, any person of means, come out to say, oh, we don't support what Sunday Igboho has done. We didn't ask him to go to UK. to go and say that we want to exit Nigeria, doesn't that silence presuppose that, look, the people, the generality of the people are behind this movement?
Let me tell you, the way the Yoruba nation agitators, the way they operate is totally different from the way the Biafran movement, they operate. So I would say that I've listened to Professor Adetu, I forgot his name, Adetu, I think. I've listened to him, and I've seen his approach. His approach is very simple. He's not going to even antagonize Bola Tinubu, who is one of their own, as president. He continues to say, we are not going to confront the Nigerian state in an armed struggle, but we are going to keep pushing for what we believe in. They are very strategic. In this East, it's a little bit different. It's not being championed or led by the people you call the intellectuals, and we pay a price for that. So you find out that the people who are leading the campaign in the East are more like middle-level people using the people on the ground. So, and it's also based on the history of the South is different from that of the Southwest. In the Southeast, nobody worships anybody. Anybody can become a champion of everything. Nobody bows or basically says, because this person is professor, we are going to listen to him. So I'm sure that there have been people who are very well educated who wanted to be part of the Biafra movement, and the way they were treated, most of them pulled back in terms of taking that leadership position. So they are very strategic in the West. That's why you don't see anybody saying he doesn't represent us. If this were to be in the East, you'll find people who will come out and say, we don't support this. So different approach.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Damages. Sure, let me come to you. So you live in the UK. In 2014, the Scots wanted to exit the United Kingdom after more than 300 years of that union. And a referendum was conducted. The referendum failed because majority of them, I think 51% of them, voted to remain in the UK. Can you take us through the problems that led to that campaign and now liken it to what we have here in Nigeria and the fact that we are unable to conduct a referendum here in Nigeria peacefully so that anybody that wants to leave can leave? It was in that same vein that Brexit was conducted peacefully and the United Kingdom exited the EU. So why is it difficult for us here to have a referendum so that people who want to live peacefully can live?
Well, I think I'm going to piggyback on what Rudolph said just now to say the best test is to let the people vote and see how we will turn out. When the Scots were agitating for the secession, or they wanted, to exit the UK, it went to the polls, and the people that wanted to exit lost. And I think you are only allowed to do that every 10 years. So I'm sure they are still talking about trying again to see if they would, be able to leave the UK or not. But in the UK, it's slightly different in the sense that, yes, they would want to keep the bigger number, the bigger country, the bigger union. It benefits them if they keep it, especially there's oil in Scotland, so it benefits the UK if they can keep it together. But they will not stand in their way. They respect democracy in the West. It's not perfect, but they respect democracy. They respect the people's will, the people's choice. What do the people want? If they say they want to vote to see if they want to leave, by all means, let them vote. Even the Brexit that you talked about, Scotland voted to remain. And that was something that really hurt them, especially when their vote to exit the UK failed. And shortly after that, there was a vote about Brexit. And they realized that, oh my God, if we had gone a separate way, we would have remained as part of the EU. Because if you go and look at the vote for Brexit, the Scottish people actually voted to remain. So Nigeria is a totally different story. The people in charge of Nigeria, they have to keep it together. That's the only way it would work for them. So, I'm one of the people who would tell the people from the Southeast and say, why don't you hold your legislators, hold them to account, your governors? Yes, we all focus on Abuja, but I'm one of the people that will say, let's all hold our governors to account. Let us hold them accountable. But what I've also realized is when the worst of every ethnic group, when they come together, it's difficult to break them. And that is why they will put aside their differences. So you will say the worst of the north or northeast, northwest, and the worst of the southeast, and the worst from the southwest, and the worst of the north central. They will all come together and form a group. And that's the group that has held Nigeria bound all these years. So they will do everything to make sure that they keep Nigeria together, because the minute you break it into smaller groups, chances are that the people will be able to deal with their leaders. I mean, look at what happened to this man that is currently locked up in UK. When he went to do New Yam in Germany, they slapped him and nothing happened. But imagine it's a Yoruba man that the Igbo people slapped in Germany. It would not have ended there. There would have been repercussions in Lagos. But the Igbo people slapped an Igbo man in Germany, and that was the end of it. If a Yoruba man comes to London today and Yoruba people decide to slap him, they slap him, nobody gets involved. It's our business. So I think this is the reason why you will see a lot of the Nigerian political class would rather die than see Nigeria break up. I mean, it's easy to say to Professor Akintoye and Sunday Igboho to say, oh, why don't you speak to our legislators? We have sons and daughters representing us at the National Assembly. But we know the answer that those guys are going to give us. No, we have to keep Nigeria together. What's this guy from Ekiti? I can't remember his name. I think his name is Bamidele. It was the one that was saying that if you break up Nigeria, it's like giving the Igbos their Biafra that they've been looking for. They know that it does not work for the political elite. And that is why you see these people fight tooth and nail to make sure that they keep Nigeria as one. If you want more states, they would grudgingly create also. I know that's a topic we're going to go into later, but whatever you want, they would give you. But when it comes to let's discuss, let's have it, let's even test it out. Let's see if you know what's funny? You might actually put it to the polls without Mahmoud Yakub getting involved, and you might see that more Southerners might tell you they don't want to exit Nigeria. The people of Nigeria love Nigeria. It is the Nigerian government that we don't love. We love the country. You've seen an Igbo man represent Nigeria at the Olympics. When they win any medal, they shed tears when they sing the national anthem. They love the country. It evokes something within them. They don't hate the geographical place called Nigeria. It is the political, whatever you want to call them, criminals that we don't like. So we as Nigerians, Igbo, Yoruba, Ibibio, whatever you call us, the minute Nigeria starts to work for all of us, you would now realize that we actually love Nigeria. We have nothing against Nigeria. The Igbo man that is agitating because he thinks, you know what, let me try something else. It might work for me and my people. I saw a video yesterday. I'm not sure if it was in Benin or Ibadan. I know those two towns or cities, their taxis on buses, public buses, are like brown and mustard. So I saw a few buses pass in those colors. So I'm not sure if it's Ibadan or Benin, but there was a few military army vehicles just driving past, going about their business. Organic. The people stopped them in their tracks and started telling them, please take over the affairs of Nigeria. It's not because those people don't remember what we went through during the Abacha days. Some of them might be young, some of them old enough to remember. What we faced during the Babangida days and Abacha days, it's not because they don't remember, but they're thinking, you know what, how bad can it be? People just want solutions. Whatever the solution looks like, people are willing to risk it. When we get there, we cross that bridge. That is the approach. So I cannot fault anyone asking for the total balkanization of Nigeria. Break it apart. If it's going to make it work for people, let's try it. But we know that the people in the National Assembly, the president, all of them, they would rather die than see Nigeria break apart.
All right, thank you very much. So talking about political criminals, well, I think it's only the courts that can try somebody, find the person guilty, and now declare the person a criminal. And now, Flagship, let me come to you. Flagship, do you believe that the unity of this country is not negotiable? Because that is the main reason why they have sold the idea to us that, look, we cannot have a referendum in our national constitution. What do you think? Flagship, are you there?
I think Flagship is off.
Okay, let me bring it back to the studio. Mr. Anosike.
Back.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
All right, Flagship, did you get my question?
No. Sir.
Okay, I said, do you believe that the unity of Nigeria is non-negotiable? Because that is the reason the elites have sold to us that, look, we cannot include referendum in our constitution because we don't want to negotiate the unity of this country. Is it appropriate that in a union that people willfully entered into, that they cannot willfully exit that union? And what do you think about the unity of this country?
Well, it's not negotiable, Mr. Chukwumai. The reason I say that is we have to go back to 1914 when Nigeria was amalgamated. The question is, who from these regions were involved in that conversation and signature during the process of the amalgamation when the decision was made? Was there any Nigerian involved? Were we a part of the conversation? Did we say that look, if at any point in time this doesn't work out, we can separate and go our separate ways? I was looking at the history behind that, and something shocked me. I think Zeke at that time was 10 years old, if I'm not mistaken. Abubakar and the rest of them were kids. So my question is, who from Nigeria was a part of this conversation and that signed this document? The reason why it is not negotiable is we did not make that decision. We were not a part of it. We're only reading about it. I read somewhere.
Sorry, Flagship, let me come in there. If you're talking about the amalgamation clause that brought Nigeria together, I would also like to let you know that it expired in 2024. So what holds us together as a people?
Could you repeat that? You cut off for a minute, please.
Come again.
Can you repeat your question?
No, what I said is that if you talk about the 1914 amalgamation that brought Nigeria together, you say that none of the people present here now was involved. But I'd like to let you also know that that amalgamation expired in 2014 because it was actually supposed to last 400 years.
So what have we done about the expiration is the question. Have we gone back to renegotiate or rediscuss this? Have we put it back on the table? I mean, when I say we, our politicians, the people coming together to say this thing has expired. It's over 100 years.
So, Flagship, don't you think that is why some people want to exit the union?
Well, the point is this. Although it says it's expired on paper, but in actuality, it's not. That is why Sunday Igbo will go to London to ask for their support to remove the Yoruba nation from what is now the so-called Nigeria that we have. And my question is, why even bother to go there to ask them? It's like going to the man who is wielding punishment on you through his proxies and asking him to give you a breathing space. These people provide safe havens for the same politicians who are fighting and oppressing the people that is causing your wanting to be separated from what is called Nigeria today. So that in my opinion, is a fruitless effort. What should happen is the conversation needs to be between the 0.00001% of the quote unquote elite who are coming up with these ideas of wanting to separate and the people. How much, and I think it was Shaw or maybe Dr. Damages that mentioned this a minute ago, how much of that conversation has been had between the people, the actual people, and these politicians who are pushing this agenda? Do they really understand what it means to be separated? What benefits will that have for them? And what negative impacts will that have on the people as well? Here in the US, yes, California has a great economy. Texas boasts of everything that it has to stand alone as a country. But they also forget to know that the strengths that they are boasting of today, they got it because of the unity that what the today United States is. The true test of this agitation is what happens when it is separated. Are the people going to be as prosperous? Or will that nation, California or Texas or New England, the South and the rest of them, will they be prosperous as they are now? Will they advance more than what they are today in terms of every aspect of what makes a nation? Or will they begin to retrogress? But you see, in America, and which is something I think the Nigerians should begin to look at, America prides itself in the strength of unity. They know what that means, that the day America is fragmented, its power is gone. California alone, yeah, may be the 5th largest in the world economically, but if that split or separation occurs, it's not going to be able to boast of that in every aspect. Remember, China, India, their biggest strength is in their unity and their population. That's why they are dominating the world today. So with all these small agitations that we're having in Nigeria, have we taken time to really look deep into what the benefits and the positives in our unity stance provides for us? Our separation today makes us just a little tiny fragment that can be conquered any time by any nation. Let's not even talk about the West. If one or two nations, say South Africa, for example, decides to come and attack if the Yoruba nation is on its own, separate, and they are interested in something there that they want to take hold of, they don't have the strength to withstand that. In my opinion, I think the unity of Nigeria is non-negotiable. We really need to go back and start thinking about the strengths in our and the positives in our togetherness as a nation. It's just a tiny fragment of Nigerians who are pushing this agenda to separate the people. And Shaw is right. If I'm not mistaken, I don't want to take that out from who made this comment, that Nigerians love Nigeria as it is together. It's just that the disparity is so much that the people are not feeling a pinch of the positives on them in what they contribute to the nation. So I'll end with this. It's like a relationship. If one partner is giving more than the other, and that partner that is giving more is not being appreciated, yeah, you will want to move for cessation or separation or divorce. But if both of them appreciate each other, no matter what their contributions are, their strengths will be more highlighted than their weaknesses. So we need to go back to the table and start talking about
Thank you very much, Flagship. Thank you very much. I understand that Show has joined, KJ has joined us. KJ, welcome to the show and good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much. I think there was a mix-up because I've been here since the beginning.
Oh, I'm very sorry about that. I'm very sorry. It would have been a tech hitch. So now let me bring you into this into the discussion now. Do you agree with Flagship that Nigeria's unity is non-negotiable, that whether we like it or not, we must remain part of this union? I think that's what a lot of people understand when we say, or when people say that Nigerian unity is non-negotiable. Whether you like it or not, you die here, as we say in our local parlance. And again, why do you think that the agitation to exit is more intense in the south than in the northern part of this country?
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Chukuma. And then thank you, viewers, and the guy in the studio. I totally agree with him, and I differ a bit from the Flagship. I do not believe that there's nothing that is not negotiable. I am a Christian. Even Christ tells you that you negotiate with. He say, come with your idea. Let us present your idea. Let me hear it. And so, if Christ, who created me, can say I should negotiate with him, then why is a man like myself say it is non-negotiable? Even in marriage, that is the most secret thing, after creation on earth, is negotiable. It gets to a point where your wife or yourself say you don't want to any longer. You guys negotiate it out. If the negotiation ends in good faith, then we'll continue. If it doesn't end in good faith, then we shake hands across the table and say au revoir. And so that is it. I do not, and I have never believed that term, that the unity of Nigeria is non-negotiable. Why should it be non-negotiable? These are moving factors. The people in indices, the people involved are human beings, and human beings constantly on the move. And so you cannot say something you wrote in 1960. Then 60 something, when the amalgamation took place, and at this time, 100 years later, we cannot sit across the table and take a good decision. More so that not our leaders, most of our leaders are not involved in these processes, and so now advancement of knowledge and understanding even gives you gives you that leeway to say, look, let's sit down and negotiate. The negotiation is not necessarily that people want to go, just like most of the panelists have said, but it's because we want it to work for everybody. Whether you are the minority tribe or you're the majority tribe, we want everybody to feel represented. Okay, and so that's the reason. But this clause, Nigerian unity is non-negotiable, has kept people from being able to sit down together and negotiate what way forward. And so I do not believe that. I do not believe that it's non-negotiable. I believe that we should sit together have a national conference and then discuss, or not even a national conference, even if it's just a tribal conference, have people sit down and say, we even call those who are agitating to leave and say, okay, how can we make it better for you so that Nigeria will work for you?
Okay, KJ, talking about national conference, former president, military president Abacha conducted one in 1995. He wanted to implement it in 1998 before he died. In 2005, Obasanjo conducted another one, and he was unable to implement it before he left office. And in 2014, President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan also conducted another confab. Within these three, Nigeria spent over 100 billion naira to conduct those three national confabs. Yet, the recommendations of those confabs still lie in one cupboard, gathering dust. Well, that's how far we can go on that topic about the agitation for sovereign state of Yoruba nation, sovereign state of Biafra.
Mr. Chukuma, I was going to make a comment to that.
Sorry. Can I just finish?
Okay. Let me just finish with my, then I will come back to you, KJ and Flagship. So the issue of people wanting to exit the union is something that speaks at the fundamental basis of our existence, of our unity. It is not accidental, it's fundamental. We came together as a people, whether forced or not. Then at a point, somebody wants to exit the union. I think it's just normal that the powers that be, whether those agitations come as a result of grievance or greed, as we say in security studies, it is important that the government hits and ensures that, look, people are allowed to express their opinions. Now, KJ, you wanted to say something quickly.
Yes. I want to say two things quickly. First of all, your first topic, which was the budget and all that, I want to just put it before I move on to just complete it. You see, there's a story we used to hear those days called Alibaba and the 40 Thieves. So if Alibaba now sits in his house and calls his friends who are the 40 thieves and present the budget to them, what do you think is going to happen? Will anybody oppose it? Because everybody knows that at the end of the day, there'll be fallout for all of them. So Alibaba is not different from the 40 thieves. Now, going on to what you've said, it is totally true that everything on earth is a moving factor. You can negotiate anything. You can, if right now, say, you can even negotiate that you are no longer a man, you want to be a woman. These people are negotiating it and getting through. Then why won't 231 million or 35 thereabout million people cannot sit together and say, look, we do not want to be part of this any longer, even if it's for their own detriment, if it's not to their own advantage. Some people have come to argue if the Igbos go their way, they are landlocked, they cannot prosper. Why do you want to now be the one to tell the Igbos what they should be doing? Just like we cannot say to the Yorubas, why do you want to exit Nigeria? If that's what they want to have, let the government sit down together with them and say, okay, this is what we're offering you. If we do this, will it be okay for you?
Good.
It's something also offer to other people. And that's why I stand,
All right. Thanks very much, KJ. Now, Flagship, you wanted to chime in on something?
Yeah, I wanted to mention briefly that you just mentioned the three conferences that were held between Abacha, Obasanjo, and Jonathan. The reason why I say it's non-negotiable is exactly what you just mentioned. We came out with a conclusion, or at least some sort of conclusion, on what the people actually wanted. But the implementation never saw the light of day because Nigeria's separation is it's not allowed. And the reason being that the actual people who rule that country are not ready to give it up yet. 1960 is just on paper. But the actual leaders that we have are what I like to call pseudo-leaders in Nigeria. We don't make the decisions. The decisions come from the former colonial masters who till date, as we speak, still have their fingers deep inside Nigeria. So no matter how much we sit down to talk about, let's come to the table and have a conference and figure out what works for us. We may come out with a good picture of what actually works for us as a people. But the question is, will those who are actually controlling what happens in Nigeria...
All right, thank you very much, KJ. Sorry, thanks very much, Flagship. I think it's an ongoing conversation because for some people it's here and for other people it's here. Like, with time, we'll expand this conversation and see why it's difficult for us to understand that, look, our unity is negotiable or it's not negotiable. Now, Mr. Anosike wants to chime in on something. Quick one, please.
And one, I don't know how many people that had this information. The amalgamation was a unilateral decision by one man. And why the North and South came together is because of 500 pounds. Now, Nugget was making profit in the South, but was having a deficit of 500 pounds in the North. The only reason he decided to amalgamate it was just to a kind of cut the deficit that he was running in the
When
North.
you say was the decision of one man,
Lord Lugard.
Okay.
He was making profit in the South, but had a deficit of 500 pounds in the North. So it is 500 pounds that brought the amalgamation.
Has that equation changed? Because it looks like it is
And
still
it
the
has
South.
not, it is still happening today. So what caused that amalgamation is still happening today. Understand me? That profit and deficit is still happening today. And that's one of the reasons.
We continue to remain our brother's keeper and stay together
And
even when it's no longer fashionable
That
for
is
us?
one of the reasons that is fueling this agitation. The chicken that is laying the golden egg is not having anything. See how Niger Delta is and see how Abuja is.
All right.
But another thing is you can never enforce peace. Peace can only be achieved through understanding.
Through dialogue.
Understand me? You can never enforce it. So, and nothing on earth that is beyond negotiation.
All right, thank you, Mr. Anosike. Now, the World Bank has applauded the economic reforms policies of President Bola Tinubu and advised Nigeria to sustain those reforms for the next 15 years to make it impactful and beneficial to the Nigerian population. Meanwhile, the same World Bank has also said that Nigeria and other sub-Saharan African countries will need 100 years to exit from extreme poverty. Dr. Damages, what's your take on this? Do you think that, I know you live outside Nigeria, but from the feelers you get at home, and also know that you have relations, you have tentacles spread here, the feelers you have or that you get from Nigeria, does it look like the reform policies of the president is making headway or that the reforms are impactful, considering the soaring inflation, the hardship, the economic decline, the price of fuel, lack of power, and all of those things? Do you think that the World Bank is right to say that the policies are very, very impactful and beneficial to Nigerians and that they should be sustained?
You can use those two phrases in one sentence: impactful and beneficial. They're impactful, quite all right, but they are not beneficial. They are killing people. They are chasing people out of the country.
That is to say the impacts are negative.
Yes,
Okay.
Unless the goal, and I think someone said that probably that's the goal, unless the goal is to get maybe 1/3 of Nigerians to either die or to leave the country, then they will achieve that goal. There is no other way if they continue on this path for 15 years. I'm surprised that that man that said this, people just sat down there and listened to him and let him go. It's unfortunate. But I don't think that someone said that Tinubu, if you give him 100 years, that he's not going to change anything in the trajectory of the country.
Dr. Damages, sorry, the man that said that if you give Tinubu 100 years, that he won't change anything, is working with Tinubu now. I'm sure you're talking about you're talking about Daniel Bwala.
No, not that one. Not that one. I had a guest on my show, Dr. Kathleen Odunweze. He's based in Germany, and he said that if you give Tinubu 100 years, he will not accomplish anything. I didn't know someone else said it before him. But yeah, he is quite all right. I mean, if you look at the policies in place, a bag of rice today is $110,000. $110,000. In the next 3 years, it's probably going to be 3 times or more that price. And the income of Nigerians is not going to increase at the rate where they can afford these things. The cost in the last 1 year, someone actually calculated how much it cost him to fill a tank of Honda Accord, from something like 9,000 to 90 something thousand today, and the income is still the same. Nothing has changed. So that's unsustainable. I don't know if anybody, you need a prophet to tell them it's not sustainable the way they are going. People are doing anything they can do now to be able to survive, to eat. At a point, they will run out of options. They won't be able, even if you want to steal, you can't find where you can steal enough to survive. Even if you want to rob people, you can't find people to rob. Even if you want to kidnap people, you don't have enough people to kidnap and get the money to survive. So it will be unsustainable. I saw that video that Show was talking about, where people were begging the military, come and save us, take over the government. It's something that should frighten the elites, the political elites, when they see something like that. They know that people have gotten to the end of the war. But to say that you can sustain this for another 2 years, it's not possible in Nigeria.
But Dr. Damages, why do you think that the elite is not frightened? Even with the protests, we had 2 protests within 2 months. The NLC has been calling for strike, every now and then. And looks like the elite we are talking about, they are not frightened, and they are just laid back, thinking that, as a matter of fact, they take a lot of things for granted. What do you think is responsible for that? No, is it because they have the stranglehold on Nigerians or what?
Yeah, yes, they understand the Nigerian, okay, but the problem with that is that there's a point you see a different Nigerian that you did not know. They think they understand the Nigerian, a typical Nigerian. So when you tell them, when they say they are going to protest, they come out, you bring in the police, and 2 days they go back and continue to complain in their homes. So they figure that out. They think they can disorganize them by talking about ethnicity, by religion, and using that to make them feel that, this is why you are attacking me. But what they don't know is that there's a point to get to where something they have not seen, they have not planned for, they don't have contingency plan for will happen. And that's when it happens. And it happened in other countries in the world. When you think you figured them out, the people out, they can take more of this. You want to tax them. You want to, in one state, I think Enugu state, they are taxing dead bodies in the morgue. They are looking for, Tinubu is looking for ways to tax everybody. If you open an account, you have to pay tax before you can open an account. So they are looking for ways to get more money. And it's not like they're using the money in a way that is benefiting the people. So what will happen is that you get to a limit. There's always a limit to everything. Where the people will say no. They've not seen it. So they can't plan for it. They don't know what is coming. It's going to come.
All right, thank you. Sure, let me come to you. In a couple of weeks or months now, the World Bank has been overly interested in what is going on in Nigeria. I don't know it's because of the money they are giving us. The other time, I think like 3 weeks ago or 1 month ago, they doled out $2.5 billion, as grant. Last week, it was $500 million as grant again. And Nigeria is in the process of securing a $1.7 billion loan, for rehabilitation of infrastructure, construction of roads and healthcare and all of that. My question is, why is it that the World Bank, the Washington Consensus, the Bretton Woods institutions, why is it that they shove down policies on our throat, even when they know that those things are not helping our economies to grow? Do you think that is part of the conspiracy theory that, look, these institutions were just formed, to pull down Africa? Unfortunately, these same institutions were used to grow the economies of the Eastern Europe and part of Asia at the end of the Second World War. Is it a problem that we don't understand economics, or is it a problem of leadership, or is it a conspiracy? Please help us unpack. Can you help us unpack these contradictions in a way that the average Nigerian can understand it?
Okay. I'll make an attempt. So what needs to happen for this to succeed is for the Western powers, IMF, World Bank, and the rest of them, is for them to find willing partners in whatever country. I mean, it happened all over the world. It's happened everywhere, where you get them send their people to go and, like the guy, the World Bank VP who went to Nigeria. Those are the people you call the economic hitmen. There's a book I read a few times. Economic Hitman is a book that I would recommend for a lot of Nigerians to read or listen to. It will make them understand how the world works. So they would find willing partners in Africa or Venezuela or wherever they want to sort of enslave all over again. And if you don't agree, they would take you out as the leader of that African nation. So once they find a willing partner, they can now perpetrate whatever they want to perpetrate. They would borrow you money till you can borrow no more. You will be saddled with so much debt that every penny you make, you'll be using to service the debt. And they would also send people to you that they would have trained as tax collectors. And they would tell you, this is how the way we collect tax in the UK. This is how we collect tax in the US. Everything we do in the UK and in the US is majorly, funded by the taxes we collect. So these are the people that help us collect it. These are the tools we use. These are the 2024 type of tools we use to collect these taxes. They will now send these people to your nations. And now you will see taxes everywhere. They will be showing your politicians, your political elite, where to tax. I mean, like Rudolph said, they are now taxing people 40 naira per day. At the morgue, the dead people, 40 naira per day at the morgue in Enugu. They would tax you till, Margaret Thatcher once said it in the UK that you can't tax the people out of poverty. That's somebody from the UK speaking. I don't have a problem with borrowing money. The UK borrowed money to show up their own, to defend their currency in 1976, I believe it was, under the Labour government. That was the largest amount of money that was borrowed from the IMF by anybody at the time. I think it was at the time $3.9 billion US. The UK borrowed. It was granted. In fact, they took out half. At the end of the day, they realized that we don't need all of it. So they took out half of it, and in 3 years' time, they paid it back. They built their reserve and paid it back. That's a nation that knows what they want and have the interest of their people at heart. But unfortunately, in Africa and the rest of the third world countries that they like to call us, we have weak, spineless leaders who would do anything to please their masters. So this is what is currently going on. They would keep borrowing us money. There was a time in the UK years ago when I first came to the UK and I didn't understand how.
Sorry, hold your line of thought. I think the fact that they keep borrowing us, lending money to us, is the fact that, according to them, we are still within a good threshold if you look at our debt to GDP ratio. At last count, Japan even borrowed more than Nigeria. Japan is very highly indebted to the World Bank, but their economy is still strong. So what is the problem?
So that is exactly what I was saying. So borrowing money is not bad. What you do with the money you borrow is what makes the difference. Japan can borrow money. The US have, they have loans. There's no issue having loans or being indebted to World Bank or IMF. But what do you do with the money? Look at the topics you first mentioned at the beginning of the show. We have a state governor allocating 775 million naira, which is 352,000 pounds today, on fixing the gate of the State House. You have another one budgeting 9 billion to renovate his house, the governor, and the deputy's lodge. The vice president's edifice that he built cost 21 billion, and somebody is renovating for 9 billion. Even Dodam Barracks, that is going to be renovated for President Tinubu. Dodam Barracks was abandoned since the military moved to Abuja. Dodam Barracks is in Lagos. To renovate Dodam Barracks and the vice president's lodge in Lagos is going to cost 7 billion. So how dare a governor spend 9 billion to renovate his own lodge and his deputy's lodge? So what you do with the money you borrow is what makes the difference. And this World Bank and IMF, they can see, they're not blind. They can see that we're buying private yacht, a yacht for the president. They can see that we're buying a new presidential jet. They know the things we do with money, and they would encourage you and saying that you're on the right path. Remember, Goldman Sachs said in April this year that Naira was the best performing currency in the world. Naira, by Goldman Sachs. They said, we're on the way to El Dorado. We're doing really well. There's no cause for alarm. So this guy that came to Nigeria, the Indian guy that came to Nigeria on behalf of the World Bank, and I was quite happy that there was a lot of murmuring and chattering when they said we need to continue this for the next 15 years. Let me predict what will happen. I'm not a prophet, but if I was a gambling man, I would say that Nigeria would have its breakthrough when the people sat in that meeting where the VP World Bank was speaking, because those are the middle class, upper middle class. When they start grumbling, when they start feeling the pinch, you know why they've been quiet all this while? When there's no good school in Nigeria, they could afford to send their children to international schools in Nigeria where they pay in foreign currency, or send their children abroad when Naira was still affordable, or foreign exchange was still affordable to them. Now it's 2,200 to 1 pound. It's 1,700 or 1/8 to $1. The minute they can no longer afford to send their children to good schools, and they are now looking at the state of the public schools in Nigeria, we would have a breakthrough. The minute they can no longer afford to fly out for medical treatment and they have to stay in Nigerian hospitals and they see how bad it is, we might have a breakthrough.
Good.
The minute they realize that their beautiful estates where they are secluded from the poor Nigerians is no longer safe. You know, there's a saying that the poor cannot sleep because, the rich cannot sleep because the poor are awake. When the poor people keep them awake in their beautiful estates, then they would join the grumbling poor people in Nigeria to demand good governance. Until then, nothing's going to happen because these guys, there's so many of them. They're the majority.
All right.
They can afford they have alternative to everything the government is not providing. So when they can no longer afford it and they start complaining, then we'll have the critical mass and we'll demand good governance from our leaders and chase IMF and World Bank out of Nigeria.
Thank you very much. A lot of people will agree with you or even say that is happening. The other day, Senator Gabriel Suswan complained that he cannot even afford a crate of egg because one crate of egg is now 10,000 naira. And the governor of Bauchi State, Mohammed Bala, said, look, President, your economic reform policies are causing problems for Nigerians. If it continues in this way, in this direction, Nigerians are going to lynch us. We just pray that it doesn't get to that level. Shaw mentioned something about Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs is a highly regarded financial services agency in the United States. In April, like Shaw said, they rated the Nigerian's naira as the best performing currency in the world. Last week, World Bank, from its report, said that Nigeria's currency is the worst performing in the world and put it at par with the Ethiopian birr and the South Sudanese pound. How do we get out of this kind of contradiction? Please, KJ, can you help us understand what is going on between our currency being the best and the worst, just within 6 months?
Well, that tells all the story. Just like the other panelists said. That tells all the story. See, the other day I was discussing with Dr. Damages, and I told him I have become very skeptical of what I read these days. I'm trying to find the truth for myself because I realize that most of what has been written is killed towards making the African mind or the Africans to feel continuously being under pressure. Because now here are the two agencies owned by foreigners. I say foreigners, they say that these are agencies that are in the US, and they are concerned about the currency in Africa, the Nigerian currency, and they are praising us. Why are they praising us? The people who are borrowing money from this agency, that those are Paris and all the rest of them. And how are we borrowing the money? We're using our own wealth, our own mineral resources, our natural resources to borrow money and constantly putting our country in a very precarious situation. Now, I'll give an example. Nigeria started falling backward, but the fall got worse when we took the IMF loan by Babangida, even though the whole nation has said, do not take the loan. And right from that point to today, we have been on that spiral. But I see if you notice, nothing that goes up, that comes down, especially the Nigerian money. The money and everything, the fuel price has continuously going up. The money is constantly being devalued. I don't know, somebody said it's been devalued more than 33 times. And we are still saying we have the best. For you, who is Nigeria, reading those things, how do you think the Nigerian currency, that now almost the Cameroonian country just by our side are even telling us to come to their country to work as foreigners? Okay, how do you now say that the Nigerian currency is better and is the most perfect working best in the world now? I don't think so. I think it's constantly right, that same line that we've always had, that everything that comes from Africa, we are being told so that we can continuously remain at the level that we are not going to be able to make a difference. If Nigeria has to wait for the next 100 years or 15 years before its people can benefit from the resources or the money, then what are you saying? How many people will survive the next 15 years in the situation that Nigeria finds itself? And so I think there's a lot of things that are not straight, things that are not totally, they are just meant to constantly keep us where we are, until we begin to learn to think for ourselves, write our own story, tell our own, build our own trust our own economic experts, and to begin to have our own consultancy within our own people who will decide what is best for us.
All right.
We will continuously to have such a thing.
Okay.
I will continue to have leaders who do not take their own people's advice first before listening to others.
Good.
And that will keep us where we are in that same hole that we've always been dug and kept in. And now I looked at also, before you came to ask me this question, how many countries have been benefited economically and they've been turned around from borrowing money from the IMF and the World Bank. Few that was mentioned was India, China, and one other country, and all of them, were supported. And look at how it turned out to be. And the other ones in Africa have constantly been a struggle. We have constantly been a struggle because they come and tell you, don't subsidize this, don't do this, don't do this. But in their own place, farmers are being subsidized. Almost everything, education has been subsidized. But you said to us, don't do this, because if you do it, we will not, and then we will agree and go with it. What about the so many professors in Nigeria who are advisors to other nations, other developed nations, who come to call them to advise? We know of Idika Kalu, who was an advisor, who is a Nigerian, still living. There are many other ones who are advising people outside of Nigeria on economic situation. Why won't we have those people as a committee and let them advise the government on what to do with the Nigerian economy, if just in case you don't know what to do?
All right, thank you so very much, KJ. I think Sho shares the same view with you because he mentioned about the issue of leadership, and a lot of Nigerians will agree with both of you. Now, quick one, flagship. Still talking about World Bank and IMF prescriptions. The World Bank says that, look, that we need to show up our monetary policy rate, which is now at 27.5%. Monetary policy rate for the average listener at home is just interest rates. And that seems to be the highest that we have gone in the past 25 years or even more. And the argument that the CBN governor gives is that, look, he wants to use it to control inflation. And some of us that have a little understanding of economics are wondering, how can you increase the lending rate because you want to fight rising inflation? Isn't that some kind of contradiction in the basic principles of economics? And how would that control inflation when you are trying to stifle the manufacturing sector that you are supposed to be lending money at single digit so that they can flood the market with goods? Because I also understand that inflation is when more money is chasing few goods. Please, Flagship, can you help us understand that kind of contradiction in a bit?
Again, let me start from this part of the world. America, excuse me, as a nation, prides itself in the strength of small businesses. That's what really holds the economy and keeps the engine running. Easy access to loans at very low or minimal interest rate that are affordable. If you take borrow money from a bank at 40% interest rate, I don't see how that business is going to survive. So the monetary policies in Nigeria that the IMF is advising Nigeria to keep and push, what are the resultant effects that it's had in Nigeria? Businesses folding up and packing out of Nigeria, small entrepreneurs that are in Nigeria not being able to access loans to establish their businesses, insecurity, just getting out of control. Actually, it's out of control. Their everyday living standards just getting deplorable every day due to these monetary policies that do not in any way impact the people positively. You see, the IMF reform, the reforms that IMF, first of all, reforms are good. In any institution that wants change, either change due to regression or changes to improve themselves, will have to come up with good reforms and better policies to advance whatever their goals are. But in making such reforms, you have to be very careful on how it impacts the people, how it impacts the institution that you're trying to change, and how long you keep that reform running. Okay. These monetary policies have in no way benefited the Nigerian economy in every aspect. You look at it, like you rightly mentioned, the manufacturing industry is every day going down and declining. due to these rates. These increased rates affects just about everything that tends to hold to the survival of the average Nigerian. So I think it is not in any way beneficial. The IMF policies or reforms that they're asking Nigeria to sustain is very anti-social. It's in no way going to help Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Flagship. Now let's bring it back to the studio. Mr. Anosike, a quick one. World Bank says we need 100 years to exit from acute poverty, extreme poverty. Do you agree with them?
For me, no country can borrow itself to greatness. No country in the world can borrow itself to greatness. And the IMF and World Bank are just there to keep Africa down.
All right.
They are there to keep Africa down, and World Bank and IMF will think for those who cannot think for themselves.
Okay.
Our president cannot think for himself, so World Bank and IMF is thinking for him.
All right, we have to apply the brakes at this moment and go for a short break. And when we come back, we'll delve into another issue. Both the president and his deputy and his vice, Kashim Shettima, were outside the country within the week. When we come back, we'll get into that discussion. Mr. Anosike, I understand you have something important to do elsewhere. Thanks for joining us. Mr. Anosike is a public speaker, economist, and an author. Let's go for a short break. When we come back, we'll delve into the next topic.
Are you ready to connect with distinguished Nigerians around the world? The Diaspora Perspective is here to share the views of Nigerians in the diaspora on burning issues.
From the street of New York, the royal cities of London, and the bustling cities of Europe, Voice of the People Television brings to you a roundtable and collage of interesting views from Nigerians in diaspora.
Join the host of the show and some Nigerians in diaspora, Dr. Damages, the Flagship, Show, and KJ, as they discuss the experiences, challenges, and triumphs of Nigerians living abroad.
Discussing and analyzing everything from politics, culture, policies, career success, and how Nigerians are staying connected to their roots. Showing every Saturday by 2 p.m. West African Time and 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
The Diaspora Perspective, giving a voice to Nigerians abroad. From the views on the street,
we go to bed empty hunger,
to the blaring horns of a hustling city, the loudest voices of the common man got a medium to be heard.
This particular administration, they were coming unprepared.
It's not a bad thing to renovate the president's lawn.
Through top-notch programming, unbiased reportage of news, sports, business, entertainment, and cultural documentaries, Voice of the People 90.3 FM became a symbol for 21st century media. And now, a new baby is born. Voice of the People Television, VOP TV, youthful, full of vigor and penchant for excellence in the continent's media space, exposing the wrongs, applauding the rights, dissecting the news without fear or favor, through factual and accurate stories and contents.
Corruption kills three things and makes a society.
Representing the interests of the people and giving them a voice. Voice of the People TV is here to stay towards building a fair society. VOP TV, Voice of the People Television, truly a voice for the people.
All right, welcome back. You are still watching Diaspora Perspective Show on Voice of the People Television. Now, within the week, Vice President Kashim Shettima jetted out of Nigeria and traveled to Sweden to hold a bilateral meeting with people in Sweden. Before he left, the president had taken a 2-week vacation. Well, first went to UK and later to France. At that point that Shettima left this country, the president himself was also outside the country. Now, the issue is, or the question is, was there a vacuum in leadership, considering that the president, when he traveled, did not transmit any letter to his vice? And it was after the vice had left to Sweden that the presidential spokesperson, Bayo Ononoga, said, oh, there is no vacuum in leadership. He named the Senate president, the secretary to the federal government, and a couple of other people as the people that are in charge. We still have virtually Dr. Damages, the flagship show, and KJ joining us on this show. Gentlemen, thanks for staying with us. Now, Dr. Damages, let me come to you. In the course of the week, Nigeria was more like headless. Can this kind of thing happen in the United States of America where you live? And what is the implication that you have the president and the vice, both of them, outside the shores of this country at the same time?
Well, it's actually a good thing that they are not in the country at the same time, and the country is still functioning. It shows that we don't need them. To say that the president of Nigeria could just disappear for 2 weeks.
No, did he disappear? He's on a working leave. He's on vacation. Isn't he entitled to leave?
Do you know where he is?
They say he's in France.
They said, do we have a picture of him in France?
I have not seen any.
You know, the president of America, wherever he is, there's media with him. He can't disappear without the media being there. Even if he's on vacation, they are there with him. And we see Bush and everybody whoever president here, they follow you. They know where you are. You can't disappear for 2 weeks. And when he started this, when he was president-elect, he went to France and disappeared. And I said, this is not acceptable. People say, oh, he won't do that when he becomes the president. He's sworn in, he becomes the president. He's doing it. We just are not serious. We allow them to do these things, and it continues. It's getting worse. Now the president and the vice are leaving. The Senate president will also leave, and the Speaker of the House will leave. The country will continue, which is unique. It's wonderful. The point is this: we, the people. I think we have to start addressing we, the people, because we, the people, are the ones who are, at this point, we are responsible for what is happening to us. It's not these people. These people, they don't care. There's no reason why this should be happening. Anything could be changed. The vice president, he must not go at that time to do a visit to anybody, anywhere in the world. He could wait until the president comes back. I don't know how these people think. They just don't care about the image they are giving out there. If two of them can disappear and nothing happens and the country is all right, then maybe we should have a president and no vice.
Dr. Damages, when you use the word disappear, is the vice president clearly told us that he's going to Sweden for a bilateral summit. And the president is on vacation. Now, the question is this. Has it ever happened? Let's not talk about the past. In recent times, that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, both of them will fly outside the United States? Or did it happen during Obama and Biden, during Trump and Vance, during Dick Cheney and Bush 1? Did it ever happen?
I don't think it ever happened. But it's possible. I don't know. I have never had that happen. But what is amazing? Let me tell you something that will tell you that even if it should happen, there's a difference in the American way and the way we do it in Nigeria. During 9/11, when that incident happened, American government flew in jets across the world to bring back government officials outside the country, including past presidents. Al Gore was brought back into the country. Anybody who was important to America was flown back into America that day because they knew where they were. They knew what they were doing. The Nigerian people have no idea where their president is today. There should be media with the president at any point, whether he's on vacation or not. We saw Joe Biden at the beach in one place on vacation. The media, they were there with him. You can't disappear from the American people and don't tell them where you are, what you're doing, even if you're on vacation. They're not going to come into your house and what you cook and eat, but they know you are there. You can't do this. It's not acceptable in a democracy. Remember, even if he's on vacation, he's spending our money. he has security people who are being paid by us. He's not paying them.
The private jet is parked at his instance, and monies are paid on behalf of Nigerian taxpayers. Oh, well,
Yes.
KJ, let me come to you. KJ, the spokesperson to the president, Bayo Ononuga, said that, look, this is not the first time it's happening. Buhari and Oshibanjo were also outside Nigeria at some point in time, and Nigeria didn't collapse. The fact that it happened, does it make it right? Do you agree with Bayo Ononuga that there's nothing wrong with that it has happened before? KJ, do we still have you? All right, sure. Let me come to you with that question.
Right. Thank you. Precedence does not mean or does not make it right. The fact that it's happened in the past does not mean it's okay to do it. Mr. Ononuga says a lot of things that are beneath the office he occupies. I don't take his tweets serious. When I see them, I read the first couple of bits and I just move on from it because a lot of things he says are just, it would defend the government regardless of what they say. And I guess, it's probably his duty because they are his paymasters. It's quite unfortunate that the president and the vice president would just, up and leave at the same time. Like Rudolph rightly said, it probably means that we don't need them. Someone, joked and said it's a sign of success that when you don't need to be there physically with your business and your business can still succeed, it means you've succeeded. So these two guys have, they've left the country. It's like a fatherless nation right now, and the country is doing well. My father would joke during his days when he was around. He would joke when every time there was a strike in Nigeria, he would say when they went to the office, what did they actually do? The Nigerian civil service, like what did they actually achieve? So when these guys were around, or anytime they're around, what do they actually do to better the life of Nigerians? The danger is it's a slippery slope. The way Mr. Bayo Ononuga and the defenders of this government keep going on about it, that, it's almost like we don't have the right to know where the president is at any particular point in time. If we're not careful, if we do not keep asking them, because I was one of the people that was asking when he was president-elect, and the president was in France, and they told us, don't worry, he's still a private citizen. Once he becomes president, you would know his itinerary. Now he's become the president, and this has become a pattern. President Buhari did the same. Now, we might have on our hands what is currently happening in Cameroon. Paul Biya has not been seen in public for about a month or 6 weeks now, and the government have placed a ban on the discussion of his health in public spaces. So you cannot discuss the health or the disappearance of Paul Biya on Cameroonian TV, on radio. It's an official ban by the government of Cameroon to say, do not discuss his disappearance due to security reasons. We might end up having that on our hands in Nigeria. Do not put that past the defenders of this current government. They will do just about anything to defend the government. Like I keep saying, I don't hate Nigeria. I just don't like the way it is being governed. And if you want to believe Oji Uzor-Kalu, the former governor of Abia State, the current senator, I think representing Abia North or whatever is representing, he said the president can touch, our feelings. He can feel the sufferings of Nigerians because he drives around in Abuja in 2 cars at night. Number one, I don't believe that. Number two, let's pretend it's true. That is exposing the president. That's a security breach. Even if you're, privy to such information, you should not be going on national TV to say the president of Nigeria drives around in 2 cars at night in Abuja. And who is out and about at night in Abuja? The people out and about are not the people suffering. They are the people who can afford the nightlife, the social life of Abuja at night. And if you want to feel the sufferings of the people of Nigeria, it is not by driving around at night. No, it is what you see. There are so many low-hanging fruit. How is our interest rate at 27.25%? How can you borrow money in Nigeria today and do business and pay back the loan and make profit? The interest rate in the UK is 5%, and the people are complaining. In the US, it ranges from between 4.7 to 5.2%, and the people are still complaining. But in Nigeria, we have 27% interest rate, and the president is gone. The vice president is gone. Gone exactly to do what? And, they tell us is on working holiday, working vacation. What does that mean? It's either you're on vacation or you're on holiday. That's an oxymoron. How can you be on holiday and be working? It's not like you're looking for a job on Indeed or one of these job websites where you're insisting that it has to be work from home, it has to be remote.
Sorry, sure. Don't you think that the president is so much concerned that he decides to? Is he not being magnanimous to say, look, I'm entitled to 30 days leave, but I'm going to take 2 weeks at the first instance, and within those 2 weeks, I will also be working for the interest of Nigeria. Is he not being magnanimous with that gesture?
What a benevolent leader that we have. Oh, President Tinubu, we are grateful. we your subjects. You're taking the. I mean, if you don't cry, you would laugh. It's annoying. I mean, some people have said one of the reasons why they've decided to say it's a working holiday is because it does not want to devolve power to Shetima. It's probably afraid, they're not sure what would happen and the rest of it. When you do things like this, it leaves room for conspiracy theory. Why can you not devolve power to your vice president and go about your holiday? Take 2 weeks off and take your holiday. What does it mean to be on working holiday? What exactly is he doing? I mean, they posted a picture of him. One of the governors went to visit him in London shortly before he went to France. They said, trying to portray him working in London. The desk was empty. There was no single piece of paper. Forget a laptop, forget a computer, forget a telephone. The desk was like empty. Oak wood. That's what you could see. And they said he's on working. What work is he doing in London? What work is he doing in France? When was the last time Macron took a holiday to Nigeria to do some work? Even if you want to do that, take a holiday within Nigeria. There are places you could visit in Nigeria. And by you going there, you will boost tourism. More people will want to go and visit such places. I saw a popular Nigerian OAP going to a hotel in Nigeria and saying, is this the room Meghan and Harry? The royals, is this the room they stayed in when they came to Nigeria? And the host said yes. And people want to sleep in that room. The president should go to Obudu Ranch, go to places in Africa, promote Africa. But no, London, you're there. Gowon is in London, Buhari is in London, and you want to blame people from Japan when our presidents are the one promoting Japan. No, the Nigerian people need to come together and we have to demand better from these guys. All
right, thank you very much. Sure. I was coming to the question of where the president should spend his holiday, but let me take that with the flagship. Flagship, with all sense of modesty, I don't know for how long you have lived in the United States, but even if it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or even 20 years, you also have the benefit of history. You must have read or heard. Have you heard that an American president went vacationing in the course of the presidency, either in Europe or in Asia or in any other part of the world outside the United States of America? Can you just help us? I don't know personally, and a lot of Nigerians have asked me that question. Do you have a sense of history to relate that with us?
Not that I know of. I've been here this is my 24th year now in the U.S.
Oh, well,
and I've never, ever heard that President Bush took a vacation somewhere and is out of the country. He's always in Texas. If he's on vacation, he's back at his family home in Texas. That's where he goes to vacation. And it's a matter of national security, as a matter of fact. You cannot have the president be so far away at any time where there are issues on ground, and his vice is not in the country as well. It has never happened in my 24 years. The most that I've seen the farthest that I've seen them go is Hawaii, and that was Obama. Of course, that's part of his home country or his home land. If he takes a vacation, he's in Hawaii. And like Rudolph rightly said, he travels with the press corps. They're always there. We see pictures, we see videos of them in the beach or wherever they go to, hiking or whatever they choose to do. We know where they are. They just don't disappear on us. Now, in the case of Nigeria, and for any country, if a president leaves its country and goes to another country on vacation or working visit, as Tinubu would have it, I think it's very dangerous for Nigeria as it is. You are working from another country. Your lines of communications are not secured. Your access to the internet is not secured. You are exposed to hackers from everywhere that can peer into what conversations you're having about your country, Nigeria, and what you're doing. That's very dangerous. So I don't think it buys, it doesn't hold water to hear him say, I'm taking 2 weeks out of Nigeria to go work from London. And then Shetima is on a jet heading to Switzerland or wherever he went to Sweden for whatever meeting or conference that he went for. There was a tank explosion this week. Where was the president? Where was the vice? We never heard anything. And I think the number of bodies counted so far is over 100.
Sorry to cut you. Hold your line of thought, Flagship. But the president and the vice president have a full complement of ministers that can take responsibility in their absence.
Well, did we get a formal handover from the president or the vice? If the president was leaving and said, okay, you know what, Shetima or Nigerians, I'll be out on a 2-week working vacation.
The presidential spokesperson told Nigerians that the Senate president, the secretary to the government of the federation, and 2 or 3 other people are in charge.
Not after the outcry, Mr. Chukuma. This is improper practice or way of governance. You don't leave, and then when somebody finds out the information and cries out, and then your spokesman comes out and say, oh, well, the Senate president is in charge. No, that's not how you govern people. It shows one true picture that both the vice and the president himself, they do not trust each other. So if the president is leaving, he still holds on to power wherever he's going to. Whatever the vice is doing, his authority overrides it. The vice is not overruling or ruling Nigeria. And the vice leaves Nigeria, does not even let Nigerians know or have a formal handover to the Senate president to handle the affairs of the nation in their absence. I don't think that this is appropriate. It just shows that Nigeria has always been on autopilot.
All right, thank you, Flagship. KJ, is it back with us?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, KJ, let me ask you. The vice president traveled to Sweden for a bilateral discussion that will bring in foreign direct investment to Nigeria. When the president gave his independence speech, he said he has attracted in excess of $30 billion worth of foreign direct investment. Do you think that the vice president should have stepped down on that trip and allowed the president to come back, or send somebody, a lower level officer, probably a minister, and how would that have impacted on FDI, considering the fact that that bilateral agreement is supposed to have been sealed off at the summit level, where either the president or the vice president should have been present?
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Chukuma. The truth is that which comes first, the Nigerian people or the president and the vice president on their so-called official trips? And I'm happy that the rest have been able to say exactly how it happens here. You don't travel alone, you travel with a press corps. The press corps, whether you're at the beach, relaxing outside of, under the sun, they still taking stories and sending pictures to the American people who are your employers.
Sorry, KJ.
Yes.
Sorry, KJ.
Yes.
My question is this. We are pressed for time, please.
Okay.
Shouldn't the vice president have gone to Sweden to attract the foreign direct investment?
No, because the foreign direct investment is not going to change Nigeria overnight. So there's no need for him to have taken that trip. He should have waited for the president to come. And I agree with Flagship. That shows that there's a disconnect between the president and his vice, because if that is not there, he should have been able to wait, because someone has to be on the seat of authority. We have not seen it this bad before, where you can even look Bayo Onanuga, no matter how good he is, and I respect him, for his experience as a journalist, but he's not the president, and he shouldn't be. This thing of media assistants issuing statement on behalf of the president should stop. Doesn't the president speak to Nigerian people? Is it not the Nigerian people that did they elect Bayo Onanuga? Why should we always listen to this, bits and bits of, communication management by these people? It's not helping us at all. It doesn't make us look good in front of the international community.
All right,
which country everybody leaves and allow the country to just roll on autopilot, which is what it's doing.
All right. Thank you so very much, KJ. Now, let's cruise into the last topic of discussion. Within the week, the quest for the creation of Ogoja State passed through second reading in the House of Representatives. This isn't the first time. This year alone, we have had 3 requests. Ned Nwoko, senator representing Delta East, made a demand in the House of Representatives that Anioma State should be created. Now he wants the Igbo nation, the Igbo part of the Delta, to be joined with some part of Anambra State as a sixth state for the Southeast. Shortly after that, we had Amobi Oga representing Isukwato Umunochi Federal Constituency say, oh, we need a Etiti state. That is, Etiti is middle or equity state. The equity, the mean is that, look, Southeast should have another state to make it 6, so that Southeast will come at par with other zones that already have 60 states. Even the Northwest has 7 states. And now we are hearing from Ofiono that, look, Ogoja needs to have a state because it is the only province that has survived since 1967, when Gowon balkanized the East Central state and created 3 states out of it. He says that Ogoja remains the only that is still within a state. Every other of those zones is now a full-fledged state. Now the question would be, do we actually need other states in Nigeria? Away from political expediency, if we look at the economics of it, should Nigerians be asking for another state, given that some of the states are not even viable and go cap in hands to the central government every month requesting for allocation? Dr. Damages, what's your take on state creation in Nigeria?
Thank you so much. I actually like that they're doing this. The reason is simple. I think it's the only thing that civilians are yet to do. Democratic government in Nigeria, they need to be able to create states, not wait for the military to come back and do it for us. Then the other issue is about whether it's viable. Most states, are they viable? Of course, we know they are not. But the thing is this, because of the structure of the country and how we distribute resources, those regions, if regions have been accepted, by geopolitical zones, if we have accepted it as the core of the first division, then you should honor that and make sure that it's fair. So what I mean by that is if the Northwest, they have 7 states, and the Northeast, I think they have 6. So you should make sure that all the other geopolitical zones should also have a equal number of states, because you share things according to states. Until we move away from this structure where we share things by state and local governments, then we may not have any need to keep breaking down small places and naming them states and having governors who we take what is it called now? Security votes, and basically you have deputy governors, you have House of Assembly, just wasting more money. But for now, we have to look at reality today. To be fair to all the other regions where they have less number of states, and because you share things according to the number of states, you should.
All right, Dr. Damages, please, can you just use a few seconds to put together your final thoughts, because we are pressed for time. Okay. Your final thoughts on the topics that we discussed today. Quick one, please.
Okay. All right. I just want to say that there was something that I think it was a flagship that spoke about the people who signed, who were there and signed for the amalgamation of Northern and Southern Protectorate. I think they were Nigerians. There were 6 of them. The Shehu of Borno, Obong of Calabar, Alafin of Oyo, the guy that became the Emir of Kano, the Sultan of Sokoto, and one lawyer called Ajasa. They were there and they signed for Nigeria to be amalgamated. I don't really believe that there was it was supposed to last for 100 years. I think that was a standard legal term they use. It's like when you buy land in Nigeria or buy a house, there's that term about 99 years or 100 years. So it doesn't mean that at that point you hand it over to the people that you bought the land from. So I just wanted to point that out. The point is that the country, we need to, when you say you cannot be negotiated, I don't know what anybody means by that. There's no country that cannot be negotiated. There's no situation where people do not have the right to review their situation and decide the way forward. If we don't do that ourselves, the United Nations will do it for us.
All right, thank you, Dr. Damages. Talking about the amalgamation, I think there was a document that was out in the public sometime that actually stipulated that this union was supposed to last at the first instance for 100 years. I will go back to the archives and fish that document out so that we can put it out, put it up on the screen during the next edition of Diaspora Perspective Show. Now, let me come to the flagship. The flagship, state creation. Do you think that the Southeast deserves another state just for the sake of equity? Flagship, can you unmute yourself? I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, I was saying that this is just another way of wasting resources. The point is, how well have these states managed their resources and how much impact has it had on the people? Are they developing well? How well would getting more states help the people? So I think that it's just another way of wanting to get federal allocation that would go into the coffers of just one or maybe a few people. We need to think way beyond that.
There's a glitch there. Flagship, we can't hear you. Hello, Flagship. Okay. Now, all right, Flagship, go ahead.
I was saying that, well, I think it's just another way to begin or extend the waste of resources that Nigeria has. This is just a campaign by a few. If the creation of these states are granted, how well are these resources or allocations that will be given to them be used for the benefit of the people? What we have now is not even being distributed evenly to the benefits of the people. And I'm glad when Ned Nwoku made that push in the House of Rep, he had to push back from his own people. So creating more states is not what we need now. How well do we manage the resources to benefit the people is what we should be talking about.
Sorry, the flagship, the agitation for a sovereign state of Biafra is driven essentially by the fact that the South is feel marginalized in several ways. And one of which is the fact that they have 5 states, while others have 6 and even 7. So don't you think that creating another state for the Southeast will bring some level of, bring down the level of agitation, the intensity, because the people feel clearly marginalized in the distribution of national resources?
Well, it's not the people that are, it's the leaders, the so-called politicians of the people that are the ones that are marginalizing the people. It's not just the allocation, so to say. Even if they grant it, say, for example, another state is given to the eastern, southeastern states, will they, in true and honest effort, make these allocations that are given or that they get benefit the people?
No, I think the question is, will it douse the intensity of agitation? Because the agitation is a clear and present danger in Nigeria and in the Southeast.
It may for a bit, but when the people now start experiencing the same hardship that they're experiencing now that is put on them by their leaders, then they begin another set of agitation.
All right. Flagship, can we have your final thoughts, please? Quickly, in a few seconds. We are pressed for time.
Well, I think that Nigerian leaders should stop this abroad trip. It has never yielded any results. We need to stay back home and fix the problems. No matter how much travel and businesses we're looking for outside, none of them have translated into any meaningful impact in Nigeria. So
all right, thank you, Flagship.
To stop wasting funds and resources of the people in this abroad trips.
All right, thank you, Flagship. Now, KJ, let me come to you. KJ, should we be talking about collapsing the number of states, or should we be talking about increasing the number of states that we have, considering the economic jigsaw that creation of states has left us with?
I think we should be talking about collapsing the states. But since that has not been, they have not been able to materialize, I totally support the argument being put forward by, Dr. Damages, and, I seem to differ a bit from the flagship. Look, Nigerian resources is shared according to
Hello? Go ahead, KJ. Go ahead, KJ. Okay, gentlemen, I think this is the best place to anchor this program. I've been speaking with Mr. Peter Anosike, an author and economist, and virtually by Dr. Damage's show, The Flagship and KJ. Gentlemen, thanks for being part of the show. The show comes up every Saturday from 2 to 4 p.m. We encourage you to click on the like button and subscribe to our page. On YouTube, we are Voice of the People TV, and on other social media platforms, we are at VOP TV Live. Keep a date with another interesting edition of the Diaspora Perspective Show next week, Saturday. I am your host, Chukuma Okoro. Enjoy the rest of the day, and thanks for being part of this show.